The training room smelled like blood and fear. Knew that smell very well now. He had learned it over the past 3 weeks, day after day, beating after beating. He lay on the cold metal floor, looking up at the bright lights above him. His lip was split open. His ribs hurt when he tried to breathe. One of his eyes was swelling shut. But the worst part was not the pain. The worst part was knowing that no one would help him. 3 cadets stood around him in a circle. They were tall, almost 3 meters high, with blue skin that looked like stone. Each of them had 4 arms, thick and powerful, ending in hands that could crush human bones like dry sticks. Their faces had no nose, only 2 large black eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth that clicked together when they talked. The biggest one was called. He was the leader. He always went first. "Get up, ground crawler," said. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "We are not finished with today's lesson." Tried to push himself up. His arms shook. He made it to his knees before one of the other kicked him back down. The other cadets in the training room watched in silence. Some looked away. None of them moved to help. On the observation deck above the training floor, 3 instructors stood watching. 2 of them were from the Helix Collective, tall, thin beings with gray skin and large heads. The third was older than the cadets, with scars on his arms from many battles. They held in their hands and made notes. They watched everything. They did nothing. This was the Galactic Integration Academy on Station Velar 7. It was supposed to be a place where young beings from different species learned to work together. It was supposed to build friendship and understanding between the many races of the galaxy. The advertisements called it the future of galactic unity. But had learned the truth very quickly. The academy was not about unity, it was about power, and humans had no power here. Humans were the species to join the galactic community. They had only been traveling between stars for about 50 years. They had been doing it for thousands of years. They had conquered many worlds. They had seats on every important council. Their admirals controlled half the military stations in this sector of space. And they hated humans. Did not fully understand why. Some said it was because humans bred too fast, spreading across planets like insects. Some said it was because humans were too emotional, too unpredictable. Some said they were simply cruel by nature and enjoyed hurting those weaker than them. The reason did not matter. The result was the same. "You know what I find interesting," said, walking slowly around his fallen body. "On your little planet, you humans think you are special. You think you are intelligent. You build your tiny ships and fly into space and believe you belong among the stars." He leaned down, bringing his face close to his. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "But out here you are nothing. You are soft. You are weak. You are prey." Near the wall of the training room could see his 2 friends. Was being held by another cadet, his arms twisted behind his back. Was thin and fast, with sharp eyes that noticed everything. But speed meant nothing when your enemy was twice your size and had 4 arms to grab you with. Park stood nearby, forced to watch. She was quiet and small, with gentle eyes that seemed wrong in this violent place. She was the person had ever met. She could fix any machine, solve any problem. Her toolkit lay scattered across the floor where they had thrown it. One of them had stepped on her favorite tool, a small device she had built herself. It was broken now. His face showed no expression. She had learned to hide her feelings. They all had. "This is integration," announced loudly, speaking to the whole room now. He wanted everyone to hear. He wanted everyone to learn. "This is how it works. The strong teach the weak. The old species teach the new ones. Humans will learn their place. They will learn to bow. They will learn to serve." He kicked in the stomach. The air rushed out of his lungs. He curled into a ball, gasping, tears leaking from his eyes. Up on the observation deck, the instructor made another note on his. The 2 Helix beings whispered to each other. Standard observation. Standard protocol. Everything was normal. Everything was according to plan. There were 47 humans on Station Velar 7, 47 out of almost 3,000 beings. They were scattered across different dormitories, different classes, different training groups. The station administrators said this was for better integration, but knew the real reason. It was to keep them separated. It was to keep them weak. It was to make sure they could never stand together. Some of the humans had already broken, had seen it happen. A girl named Han had stopped eating after her first week. A boy named had tried to send a message home, but all communications were monitored. His message never arrived, and he was punished for disrupting station harmony. Now he spent his days staring at walls, not speaking to anyone. The lucky ones found ways to become invisible. They made themselves small and quiet. They agreed with everything they said. They laughed at their own humiliation. They survived. Had tried to fight back once in the first week. He had thrown a punch at a who was hurting. The punch had done nothing. They had not even moved. But the beating that followed had lasted an hour and had spent 3 days in the medical bay. The doctors, beings from a species called the, had fixed his broken bones. They had healed his wounds. They had been gentle and professional. But when had asked them to report what happened, they had looked away. These matters are handled by the instructors, they had said. We only heal bodies. We do not involve ourselves in training disputes. Training disputes, that was what they called it. That was the official name for torture. Grabbed by the front of his uniform and lifted him off the ground. Even with his feet hanging in the air, his arms showed no strain, were strong beyond belief. Their home world had heavy gravity and dangerous predators. They had evolved to be warriors. Tomorrow, said his black eyes staring into us, we will continue your education, and the day after, and the day after that, until you understand, until all you humans understand. You do not belong here, you will never belong here. The galaxy does not want you. He threw across the room, hit the wall and slid down to the floor. He could not move. He could barely see, but he could hear and the other laughing as they walked away. He could hear the instructors leaving the observation deck, their day's work complete. The other cadets filed out of the training room in silence. No one looked at or as they rushed to help their friend. The room became empty and quiet. Knelt beside her, small hands checking his injuries. We need to get you to medical, she whispered. Stood guard watching the door, his hands shaking with rage he could not release. This cannot continue, he said, his voice tight. There has to be something we can do. But they all knew the truth. There was nothing. There was no one coming to save them. The instructors watched and did nothing. The commanders ignored their reports. The other species looked away. They were alone. And tomorrow it would happen again. Closed his eyes and let his friends carry him away. In his mind, he saw Earth. He saw blue skies and green trees and his mother's face. He wondered if he would ever see those things again. He wondered if anyone out there even knew what was happening to them. He wondered if anyone cared. The medical bay was cold and white and smelled like chemicals. Sat on the edge of a metal bed while worked on his face with a small tube of synthetic skin. The medicine stung when she applied it but did not make a sound. He was used to pain now. Stood by the window, looking out at the stars. His reflection in the glass showed a young man with dark circles under his eyes and a jaw tight with anger. He had not stopped moving since they arrived. He paced back and forth like a trapped animal. 3 weeks, said, his voice low and bitter. 3 weeks of this, every single day, and nobody does anything. The instructors watch it happen. They stand there and they write their notes and they do nothing. Keep your voice down, said quietly. She did not look up from her work. The walls have ears here. I do not care anymore, replied, but he lowered his voice anyway. We have filed 17 reports. 17. I wrote them myself. I documented every injury, every incident, every name. I sent them to the station commander. I sent them to the Integration Council. I sent them to the human embassy on the Central World. And asked, though he already knew the answer. Nothing, not one response, not one acknowledgement, turned from the window. His eyes were bright with frustrated tears. It is like we do not exist, like none of this is real, like we are ghosts screaming into the void. Finished applying the synthetic skin and stepped back. The medicine would heal the wound in a few hours. By tomorrow, there would be no mark. They were careful about that. They hurt humans in ways that healed quickly in places that uniforms covered. They had done this many times before. They knew exactly what they were doing. "We are outnumbered," said, sitting down on the bed next to. She looked small and tired. 47 humans on a station of 3,000. They have hundreds of cadets here. They have instructors, officers, administrators. Their admiral sits on the Integration Council itself. What can we do against that? "We can fight," said. "We tried fighting," replied. His voice was flat and empty. "You saw what happened. I hit with everything I had. He did not even blink. Their skin is like armor. Their bones are like steel. One of them could kill all three of us without trying." The room fell silent. Outside the window, a transport ship slowly drifted past the station, its lights blinking in the darkness. Somewhere on that ship were beings going about their normal lives, unaware of what happened inside these walls. The galaxy was vast and busy, and did not care about three young humans suffering in a forgotten corner of space. Slammed his fist against the wall. "There has to be something. There has to be someone." Looked up. "I heard something today," she said slowly. "In the engineering section, some of the technicians were talking." "About what?" "A transfer, a new officer coming to the station, from Earth." Felt something stir in his chest. It was small and weak, barely alive after 3 weeks of crushing defeat, but it was there. Hope. "Who?" he asked. "A captain, from something called the Earth Defense Fleet." Frowned, trying to remember. "Her name is. She is being assigned here as the human liaison and combat instructor." Made a sound of disgust. One captain, one human captain against all of this. What is she going to do? File more reports, write more documents that no one will read? "I do not know," admitted. But the technicians seemed worried. The technicians, I mean. They were talking quietly, like they did not want anyone to hear. They kept mentioning something about her service record. "What about it?" "I could not hear everything, but one of them used a word I did not recognize. I looked it up later." Paused. The word was. And exchanged glances. Neither of them had heard the term before. "What does it mean?" asked. "It is a classification," explained. "For species that evolved on planets with extreme conditions. High gravity, dangerous predators, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures. Most intelligent species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds, places where life was easy and survival was not a constant struggle." She met their eyes. "Earth is not a gentle world. Compared to galactic standards, Earth is a death world. And humans are." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look at us. 3 broken humans hiding in a medical bay. Some we are." "We were not trained," said quietly. "We are students, scientists, engineers. We came here to learn, not to fight, but this captain. She is military, Earth Defense Fleet. She has spent her whole life preparing for conflict." That night they returned to their dormitories separately as the rules required. Lay in his small bed and stared at the ceiling. His body ached. His heart ached worse. He thought about the captain coming tomorrow. He tried not to hope too much. Hope was dangerous here. Hope made the disappointment hurt more. But he could not stop thinking about that word. On Earth, humans worried about so many things. Climate change, disease, war. They thought of themselves as fragile, vulnerable, always on the edge of disaster. They looked at the stars and felt small and insignificant. But maybe that was because they had nothing to compare themselves to. In the section of the station, heard the news about the incoming captain. He was eating dinner with his friends, tearing into a plate of raw meat with his sharp teeth. When one of the younger cadets mentioned the transfer, laughed so hard that food fell from his mouth. Another human, he said, grinning. Coming to save her little pets, how touching. Should we be concerned? One of his friends asked. The instructors seemed nervous. The instructors are cowards, replied. They are nervous about everything. They worry about rules and protocols and paperwork. They have forgotten what it means to be. He picked up another piece of meat and bit into it. This captain is nothing, one small human female. I will break her the same way I break all the others. Maybe I will take my time with this one, make an example of her. His friends laughed and agreed. They imagined the scene already, the new captain crying on the floor, begging for mercy. It would be entertaining. It would remind everyone of the natural order of things. None of them noticed the young cadet at the next table, the one who had looked up the captain's service record on his, the one whose blue face had gone pale as he read, the one who quietly left the dining hall and did not come back. At 600 hours the next morning, the docking bay was crowded with beings waiting to see the new arrival. Word had spread quickly. Everyone wanted to witness the moment. They wanted to see their next victim. The other species wanted to see if humans really were as weak as they appeared. The humans wanted to see if salvation was possible. Stood at the back of the crowd within, his wounds from yesterday had healed as they always did. But the fear in his stomach was fresh and cold. He did not know what to expect. He did not know if he should feel hope or dread. The shuttle appeared through the docking bay's energy shield, a small standard transport vessel with Earth markings on its side. It landed softly on the metal floor. Steam hissed from its engines. The crowd fell silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the shuttle door opened, and she walked out. Captain was small. That was the first thing everyone noticed. She was barely 165 centimeters tall, tiny compared to the smaller even than many other species in the crowd. Her black hair was pulled back tight against her head. Her uniform was simple and plain, dark blue with no decorations except for a single patch on her shoulder showing a white circle with a red center. She carried no weapons, she had no guards, she was alone. She stopped at the bottom of the shuttle ramp and looked at the crowd. Her face showed no expression. Her eyes moved slowly across the gathered beings, taking in everything, missing nothing. When her gaze passed over the section, she did not flinch. She did not look away. She simply looked. And something in that look made the laughter die in his throat. For just a moment, just a single heartbeat, he felt something he had not felt in years. Something cold and ancient and impossible. He felt afraid. Then the moment passed and shook himself and laughed again. He was being foolish. She was just a human, just a small, weak, fragile human. But deep in his chest, in a place he did not want to acknowledge, the fear remained. The storm was coming, and she was at its center. The docking bay was completely silent. 300 beings stood watching, and not one of them made a sound. It was as if the air itself had frozen. Captain walked forward with slow, measured steps. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Click, click, click. In the silence, each step seemed impossibly loud. Director moved to greet her. He was the station commander, a member of the Helix Collective, with gray skin stretched tight over a skull that was too large for his thin body. His species was known for diplomacy and careful words. They avoided conflict whenever possible. They survived by making themselves useful to those with more power. Captain said, forcing his thin lips into a smile. Welcome to Station Velar 7. I trust your journey from Earth was comfortable. We have prepared quarters for you in the officer section, and there will be an orientation meeting tomorrow to discuss your duties and... I have read the incident reports, interrupted. Her voice was calm and quiet, but it carried through the silent bay like a blade. Everyone heard her clearly. Blinked eye, excuse me. The incident reports, repeated. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. All 43 of them, documenting injuries to human cadets on this station. Broken bones, internal bleeding, concussions, Psychological trauma. She paused. Zero disciplinary actions taken. The silence somehow became deeper. In the crowd, felt his heart pounding. He had never heard anyone speak to a station commander like this. He had never seen anyone stand so still and so certain in the face of authority. "Those matters are under review," said carefully. His smile had disappeared. "The Integration Council has specific protocols for handling interspecies conflicts. These things take time. We must consider all perspectives and ensure that any response is proportional and they are no longer under review." His eyes found in the crowd. The massive stood head and shoulders above everyone around him. His four arms were crossed over his chest. His face showed amusement and contempt. "They are resolved," continued, "starting now." For a moment, no one moved. The words hung in the air like a challenge waiting to be answered. Was the one who answered. He pushed through the crowd, shoving smaller beings aside without care. His friends followed behind him, forming a wall of blue muscle and sharp teeth. When he reached the open space where and stood, he kept walking until he was directly in front of the human captain. Standing next to her, he was like a mountain beside a pebble. The top of her head barely reached his chest. His arms were thicker than her entire body. His shadow fell over her like a dark cloud blocking the sun. "You think you can walk onto this station and make demands?" His voice was loud and mocking. He wanted everyone to hear. He wanted everyone to see. "You do not know your place, ground crawler, but I will teach you, just like I teach all your little pets." He gestured toward the crowd where, and the other human cadets stood watching. Some of them had fresh bruises visible on their faces. Some of them were shaking with fear. "Look at them," continued. "Look at what humans are, soft, weak, pathetic. 3 weeks on the station and they already know the truth. They know they are nothing. They know they are prey." He leaned down, bringing his face close to us. "And soon you will know it too." Did not step back. She did not flinch. She did not even blink. "Are you finished?" she asked. The question seemed to confuse. He had expected fear. He had expected tears. He had expected begging. He had seen all of those things from humans before, every single time. But not from her. "What?" he said. "I asked if you were finished." Looked up at him with eyes that held no fear, no anger, no emotion at all. They were calm and cold like deep water in winter. "With your speech. It was very impressive. You are clearly very proud of yourself. I wanted to make sure you were done before I respond." Straightened up. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been confusion or might have been anger. Around him, his friends shifted uncomfortably. Something was wrong. This was not how it was supposed to go. "Respond," said. "What response can you possibly give? You are alone, you are weak, you are challenging you." The words cut through his speech like a knife through flesh. "I am challenging you," said again, her voice carrying across the entire bay, "to a demonstration match, right now, in front of everyone, unless you are afraid." The silence that followed was absolute. Stared at her, his black eyes were wide with disbelief. No human had ever challenged him. No human would dare. It was suicide, it was madness. And yet here she stood, this tiny woman, looking up at him without fear. "You cannot be serious," he said finally. "I am always serious. I will kill you. You can try." Director stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Now, Captain, let us not be hasty. This is highly irregular. There are protocols for combat demonstrations, forms that need to be filed, safety measures that need to be." Article 7 of the Integration Academy Charter said, not taking her eyes off. "Any officer may challenge any cadet or other officer to a demonstration match at any time, provided both parties agree. The match is to be witnessed by available personnel and recorded for training purposes." She paused. "I know your rules, Director, better than you do, apparently." His mouth opened and closed several times. He looked like a fish pulled from water. He turned to the instructor who had come down from the observation deck, hopping for support. But the instructor said nothing. The rule was clear. There was nothing they could do. "Well," said Tu, "do you accept? Or do you want everyone here to see that the mighty are afraid of one small human?" His face twisted with rage. His four hands clenched into fists. The muscles under his blue skin rippled and tensed. "I accept," he growled. "And when I am done with you, I will make sure your broken body is sent back to Earth in pieces." "Good," said. A small smile touched the corner of her lips. It was the first expression she had shown since arriving. It was not a kind smile. "The training arena, 10 minutes. Bring witnesses. I want everyone to see what happens next." She turned and walked away without waiting for a response. Her boots clicked against the metal floor. Click, click, click. The crowd parted before her like water around a stone. In the silence she left behind, stood shaking with fury. His friends gathered around him, speaking quick words of encouragement. This would be easy, they said. She was just one human. She was nothing. She would break like all the others. But watching from the back of the crowd, noticed something that they had missed. When had turned to leave, she had looked toward the human cadets, just for a moment, just a single glance. And in that glance, had seen something that made his breath catch in his throat. She had seen him. She had seen all of them, the bruises, the fear, the hopelessness. And in her eyes he had seen a promise. Not a promise of hope, not a promise of rescue. A promise of justice. Whatever was about to happen in that training arena, knew one thing for certain. The rules of the station were about to change. The training arena had never been so crowded. Every seat was filled. Beings stood in the aisles, pressed against the walls, climbing on top of equipment to get a better view. Word had spread through the station like fire through dry grass. Everyone wanted to see this. The human captain was going to fight. It was madness. It was suicide. It was the most entertaining thing that had happened on Station Velar 7 in years. Had found a spot near the front, pressed between and. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst through his chest. Around him, the cadets were laughing and placing bets. How long would the fight last? How many bones would break? Would she beg for mercy before or after he started hitting her? The odds were ridiculous. No one believed the human could win. No one believed she could even survive. In the center of the arena was warming up. He stretched his forearms, rolled his massive shoulders, cracked his thick neck from side to side. His blue skin seemed to glow under the bright lights. He was a perfect example of strength, a warrior bred from 1,000 generations of warriors. He had never lost a match. 47 victories, many of them against opponents much larger than himself. He was the pride of the cadets, the proof of their superiority. And he was about to crush a human in front of everyone. Then entered the arena. She had not changed her clothes. She still wore her standard uniform, dark blue and undecorated. She still carried no weapons. Her hands were empty, hanging loosely at her sides. She walked to the center of the arena and stopped about 5 meters from. She looked so small. The instructor who would serve as referee stepped forward. He explained the rules quickly, almost eagerly. Standard demonstration match. No weapons, no killing blows. The fight would continue until one opponent surrendered or was unable to continue. "Do both parties understand?" the instructor asked. Grinned, showing all his sharp teeth. "I understand perfectly." Simply nodded. The instructor raised his hand. The crowd fell silent. Even the laughter and the jokes stopped. Even the beings who were certain of the outcome felt the tension in the air. "Begin." Moved. He was fast, faster than something his size should have been. His forearms swung in a complex pattern that could barely follow, strikes coming from multiple angles at once. It was the traditional combat style, developed over centuries, designed to overwhelm any opponent with sheer volume of attacks. No being could block 4 arms at once. No being could dodge attacks from every direction. It was mathematically impossible. But was not there. She moved like water, like smoke, like a shadow sliding across the wall. She did not block the strikes because she was never where they landed. She twisted, ducked, flowing around attacks as if she could see them before they happened. Swung harder, faster. His attacks became wild, desperate. Each blow could have killed a human. Each blow hit nothing but air. The arena was completely silent now. No one laughed. No one spoke. They simply watched with wide eyes as the impossible happened in front of them. Overextended on a powerful right strike, just slightly, just for a moment. His hand shot out and hit his throat. It was not a punch. It was barely a touch, just her palm connecting with the soft tissue below his jaw, but the effect was immediate. Choked, stumbled, his eyes going wide with shock. Before he could recover, was moving again. Her foot swept his legs. One of his arms came down to catch himself, and she caught it, twisted it, pulled it in a direction it was not meant to go. The sound of the joint separating was loud and wet. Screamed. He swung at her with his other arms, but she was already gone. She appeared on his other side, and another arm was suddenly bending the wrong way. He fell to one knee, 2 of his 4 arms hanging useless, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The fight had lasted 11 seconds. Stood over him, not even breathing hard. There was no sweat on her face. Her uniform was not wrinkled. She looked exactly the same as when she had walked in. "Yield," she said. Tried to rise. His legs shook. His eyes were filled with pain and confusion and something else, something he had never felt before in his life. Fear. How, he gasped. How is this? You are human. You are weak. You are. I am human, agreed. Her voice was calm and clear, loud enough for everyone in the arena to hear. From a planet called Earth. A world with gravity 1.4 times the galactic standard. A world where we evolved alongside predators that would give your ancestors nightmares. A world where we survived ice ages and plagues and natural disasters that killed billions. She walked slowly around his fallen body, speaking not just to him but to everyone watching. For 10,000 years, humans waged war on each other. We developed weapons that could destroy cities. We built machines that could level mountains. We learned every way to hurt, to kill, to survive. And then we stopped. We chose peace. We chose cooperation. We looked at the stars and decided that we wanted to be explorers, not conquerors. She stopped in front of and looked down at him. You thought we were weak because we chose kindness. You saw our patience and called it fear. You saw our tolerance and called it submission. She leaned closer. You were wrong. In the audience felt tears running down his face. He was not ashamed of them. Beside him was crying too. So were all the human cadets scattered through the crowd. For 3 weeks they had been told they were nothing. For 3 weeks they had been beaten and humiliated and made to feel like they did not deserve to exist. For 3 weeks they had believed it. But now they understood. They were not weak. They had never been weak. They had simply chosen not to fight. Extended her hand toward. Get up, she said. This is your one lesson. Learn it. For a long moment, stared at her hand. His face was twisted with pain and anger and wounded pride. Everything he believed about humans, about the galaxy, about himself, had just been shattered in 11 seconds. He could refuse, he could spit at her, he could try to attack again. But he looked into her eyes and he saw something there that stopped him. Not cruelty, not triumph, not even anger. He saw mercy. She could have killed him. He realized that now. She could have killed him in the first second, the first heartbeat. Everything after that had been a lesson, a demonstration. She had hurt him exactly as much as she wanted to, no more and no less. And now she was offering him a chance to stand up with dignity. Slowly, painfully, reached out and took her hand. She helped him to his feet. His dislocated arms hung at his sides. His legs could barely hold him. "You will need to see a doctor," said. "The joints can be repaired. The bones are not broken." Nodded, unable to speak. Turned to face the observation deck, where the instructors stood in shocked silence. "This station is under new management," she said. "The abuse ends today. Any being who touches a human cadet without legitimate cause will answer to me." Her eyes moved across the instructors, the Helix Collective administrators, all the beings who had watched and done nothing. "Any instructor who allows harm to occur will be reported to the Integration Council under Article 15. Any officer who interferes with my duties will face formal challenge." She let those words sink in. Humanity did not come to the stars to be prey. We came to be partners, but partnership requires respect, and respect, she looked back at, still standing on shaking legs, respect is earned. Then she walked out of the arena, her boots clicking against the floor. In the silence she left behind, something had changed. Everyone could feel it. The air itself seemed different. The rules had changed, and nothing would ever be the same. 6 months had passed since the day Captain walked onto Station Velar 7. Stood in the training arena, breathing hard, sweat dripped from his face, his muscles burned, but he was smiling. Across from him, a cadet named lowered his 4 arms and nodded with respect. They had been sparring for 20 minutes, and while had not won, he had not lost either. He had held his ground. He had made work for every point. 6 months ago, that would have been impossible. "Good match," said. He was younger than from a different family group. "Your footwork is getting better. You almost had me with that low kick." "Almost is not good enough," replied, but he said it with a grin. "Same time tomorrow." "Same time tomorrow." They clasped hands, human, and walked off the training floor together. The station had transformed in ways that would have seemed like fantasy half a year ago. Captain had not just defeated the Bullies. She had dismantled the entire system that created them. In the first week, she had filed formal challenges against every instructor who had witnessed abuse and done nothing. She used galactic law, citing regulations and protocols that had existed for centuries but were never enforced. She wrote documents that were impossible to ignore, backed by evidence that was impossible to deny. 3 instructors were removed from their positions. 2 were sent back to their home worlds in disgrace. The admiral who sat on the Integration Council tried to interfere. He called the challenges political attacks. He demanded that be removed from the station. He threatened consequences for humanity's position in the galactic community. Responded by releasing every incident report to every news network in the sector. The scandal was massive. Station Velar 7 became the center of galactic attention. Journalists came from dozens of worlds to document what had happened. Other species who had suffered in silence began to speak up. The admiral resigned within a month. But did not stop there. She understood that punishing the Bullies was only half the solution. The other half was making sure humans could stand on their own. She gathered all 47 human cadets together and began to train them, not just in combat, though that was part of it. She taught them galactic law, the complex web of regulations that governed interaction between species. She taught them politics, how alliances formed and broke, how to make friends and identify enemies. She taught them history, the rise and fall of empires, the mistakes that others had made. And she taught them something else, something more important. She taught them who they were. "Humanity has been traveling between stars for 50 years, she told them in one of their early sessions. "In that time, we have been told again and again that we are newcomers, children among ancient civilizations. We are told to be humble, to be patient, to wait for our turn." She had looked at each of them with those calm, steady eyes. "But consider what we accomplished in those 50 years. Consider what we accomplished in the thousands of years before that. We went from caves to computers, from stone tools to starships. We cured diseases that killed millions. We built machines that could think. We connected every person on our planet with invisible threads of information. She had smiled then, one of her rare small smiles. We are not children. We are the fastest learners the galaxy has ever seen, and we are just getting started. Now, 6 months later, the results of her teaching were visible everywhere. Had become one of the most connected beings on the station. His quick mind and sharp observation skills had made him perfect for diplomacy. He had formed alliances with cadets from half a dozen species, beings who were also tired of dominance and looking for a different way. They met regularly in his quarters, planning and strategizing. Park had revolutionized the station's engineering section. The translation algorithm she designed was now being used station-wide, making communication between species faster and more accurate. She had received offers from 3 different governments wanting to license her technology. She had turned them all down, making the algorithm free for everyone to use. Knowledge should not be locked away, she had said. It should flow like water, reaching everyone who needs it. Himself had climbed the combat rankings, earning respect through skill and determination. He was not the best fighter on the station, and he probably never would be. Humans did not have 4 arms or stone-like skin or centuries of warrior tradition. But they had something else. They had endurance. They had adaptability. They had the ability to take a beating and get back up and try again. On Earth, this had allowed them to survive ice ages and predators and each other. On Station Velar 7, it earned them respect. Other species began to approach the human cadets, not with contempt but with curiosity. The Helix Collective members wanted to understand human persistence, how they could keep going when logical analysis said they should quit. The Aquatic asked about human art and music, fascinated by the emotional depth of human creativity. Even some younger, quietly ashamed of what their elders had done, sought to train alongside humans rather than against them. One day saw in the corridor, the champion had never fully recovered from his defeat. His 2 injured arms had healed, but something inside him had changed. He was quieter now, less aggressive. He still trained, still fought, but the cruelty was gone. Their eyes met as they passed each other. Nodded back. No words were needed. Something had been settled between them, something that went deeper than victory or defeat. On the day that was promoted to Station Integration Coordinator, she gathered her human cadets one last time. They met in the same training arena where she had fought, now empty and quiet. "I am proud of all of you," she said. "When I arrived here, I found people who had been told they were worthless, people who had been beaten into believing they did not matter. Now I see something different. I see engineers and diplomats and warriors. I see the future of humanity among the stars." She paused, her eyes moving across each face. "The beings who hurt you thought they were teaching you submission. They thought they were showing you your place, but they taught you something else instead. They taught you that the galaxy needs humanity, not because we are the strongest, though we are stronger than anyone expected, not because we are though we learn faster than any species in recorded history." She smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. "The galaxy needs us because we do not break. We bend. We adapt. We fall down and we get back up. We make mistakes and we learn from them. We fight when we must and we make peace when we can. We lift each other up." She looked at all of them. "Now go show the galaxy what that means." The cadets filed out of the arena, returning to their duties, their classes, their lives. But something was different about them now. They walked taller. They moved with confidence. They looked at the stars through the station windows and saw possibility instead of threat. Was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at who still stood in the center of the arena. "Captain," he said, "when you first arrived, were you scared?" Considered the question. For a moment her calm mask slipped and saw something underneath. Not fear exactly, but something human. "Every time," she admitted. "Every single time. Fear is not weakness, fear is wisdom. It tells you that something matters, that the stakes are real. The courage is not in having no fear. The courage is in acting anyway. Nodded slowly, then he smiled. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." He turned and walked away, out into the corridor, out into the station, out into a galaxy that suddenly seemed full of possibility. Behind him, Captain stood alone in the training arena. She looked up at the lights above, at the metal walls, at all the evidence of galactic civilization around her. Humanity had walked into the stars uncertain and afraid. And everything had stopped. And then everything had changed. She smiled to herself, a small private smile, and walked out to continue her work. There was still so much to do, so many more stations, so many more humans who needed to learn who they were. The galaxy was vast and cold and often cruel. But humanity was here now. And they were just getting started.